Welcome to CrossTalk with Sarah Cross, a place for radio wanderers to learn about the highest laws and other related topics, with the occasional stroll through more relaxed notions. Now here's your host, Sarah Cross.
And welcome to CrossTalk. Thanks everybody for being here this week for another edition of CrossTalk. And you know, I always appreciate your great support. And first and foremost, as usual, I want to give a big shout out to Revolution Radio. Go and check out their website and all the great hosts that they have available. And just throw in, if you're able to throw in a few bucks to keep the station operating, it is listener supported. A dollar or two can go a very long way. And before we really get started, I wanted to make a couple of quick shout out announcements. One of which is for a young girl. They are a family in my local area. And she's a young girl who is unfortunately dealing with something very difficult in her life. I will add in the poster for it and how you can support her and her family during this time. And I'm going to read the poster that is out. So her name is Rhea. She's 4 years old, and she's unfortunately dealing with a very rare childhood cancer disorder called Ewing sarcoma. Ewing sarcoma. Very rare. And as we all know, we've talked about this before on CrossTalk. The medical system is failing and fails us in almost every way, and especially with rare problems like this. So I will be sharing Rhea's information in with our Substack as usual, where you can go and try to show a little bit of support, throw in a dollar or two, or even just download the poster and share it everywhere, so that Rhea could get, the treatments that insurance may not cover, and help her parents financially, as these are the kind of problems that often financially bankrupt, because as I said before, I think it is due repeating. The system fails us, and we must take action and be there for our communities. So all my prayers and love go to Rhea and her family in this time. So please be sure, I will put that poster in with the chat room in the Substack. Please be sure to, in the very least, download the poster, share it everywhere. And if you have a dollar or two, throw it into their GoFundMe, because every dollar counts. So moving on to our next announcement, on a bit of a lighter note, I want to just give a shout out to SoundPath. SoundPath is an online music festival that will be taking place on Labor Day weekend. As far as I think that's still the date, Labor Day weekend. Their website is soundpath.org. And I will be throwing in their website as well into the chat room, onto the Substack as usual. So go and check them out, show their support. It's going to be a phenomenal music online festival, totally free, and you're gonna hear some great jams, guys. So go and check that out. You won't regret it. So on to our main topic today. Today we have Brandon Martin joining us again, and he joined us earlier in an earlier show. So if you missed that, go and check it out. The replay is still available. Brandon Martin is a One Great Work Network content creator, as well as recently he was just in the Funnel 4, and he wrote a phenomenal declaration that we're going to be discussing a little bit. I would also like to find out, what's the latest in Brandon Martin's world? What does he have planned for the future? What is he looking to do? And because we have a great year coming on, and I think all of us should take full opportunity of that. So let's bring Brandon on and we will get going. Hold on, I think you're muted, Brandon. There we go.
There we go. Hello.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for joining me again on CrossTalk. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's amazing to be back here. I loved our early discussion, and I love all the work that you've been doing. And yeah, it's such a pleasure. I remember probably like 10 years ago, I used to listen to Revolution Radio and just found so much quality information here. So it's so cool to see a content creator like yourself still on here and talking about this. Like I know Mark Passio was on here for a little while and a few others that I used to listen to. So it's kind of interesting because I used to sit in a barn on this farm and listen to Revolution. And then and now I'm on here myself with people like you. And it's just so awesome to see the growth and how much work we've all put in to get to where we are today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's one of the things about doing this kind of work too, is people fret about making it perfect or making it, you know, how to even start. I think there's a lot of issue with it being overwhelming. And you think about, even if you're not doing this specific type of work, like in the you know, more of the truth seeker community, which we're more in that realm. Even when you want to do something like this and you're not even in that realm, you're talking about news or you're talking about whatever the thing is, you know, that you like to do. I think it can be very overwhelming for people. And I mean, it's no different for me. I mean, like, it is a huge learning curve for me. But that's all really just practicing and playing around and seeing what works for people and doing baby steps. There's nothing wrong with baby steps. I mean, like, I started out with a Canon camera I set up in my spare room, well, in my old house, and doing like knitting videos and then reading crap that I wrote. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, the video quality is terrible. It's terrible. Those older videos are terrible. But my point is that even doing those small things for those who need a little bit of encouragement to, you know, get going, and even like I don't even know what I could do or contribute or whatever it is, you know, like that's really all that I started with. And that eventually turned into a book. So, I mean, you never know, like, even those little things turn into very large things. And that's like kind of awesome to see that growth in yourself, even to see your progress. So I don't think people should jump into anything expecting to be like, you know, a master of the skill. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up with some tech skills, so I was lucky to have a bunch of, you know, proficient people around me. But even there, you're just kind of experimenting. You have to run with your imagination, your creativity, and you just have to put it out there. You know, it doesn't have to be this kind of content. Just do whatever you can. I remember just making short videos, like skate videos back in the day when I was a professional skater, and they were crap. They look like crap. They sound like crap, but I go back and I watch them and they're really awesome. And they led to me learning how to do video editing and audio editing. And, you know, it's just like you said, just one step at a time. And when you're really, really motivated to create something, whether it's a painting or, you know, build a garage or just build whatever it might be, right? Like build a fire pit, you know, for your friends to come and hang out with. You will get it done, you know, and it doesn't have to be perfect. People will enjoy it, and the people who really care, they will appreciate it, and they will come. They will come. If you build it, they will come. So
that's right. That's right. It is. That is, like, I'm sure everybody remembers that from the movie it was in, but that is a true statement in either case.
Yeah.
And people will support that too. I mean, like, I really started out in the community, just doing community events. I was teaching knitting and crochet, and we would talk about, you know, this kind of stuff, metaphysical, philosophical, spiritual kind of things. I would bring in natural law stuff and all that kind of thing. And people would respond. I usually got some pretty positive response from most people. And I think the difference with that is just that you're like sitting next to a person in real time. And like, I mean, even though I think, you know, you're going to get a much broader scale, you know, group on the internet, you know, going international, which I'm not opposed to. But there's just something about sitting next to somebody and being in groups and like them kind of, you know, feeling that like you're a real person and they can trust you when you say things to them. They don't get so heated about it. You know, like on the internet, it gets all kinds of crazy and people get like wild. And they really get triggered. I think like the triggering thing is really an internet problem on the larger scale because I don't have a lot of experience with people getting like that person to person.
Right.
Same
community. Here.
It's just I don't see it. It's like almost all on the internet.
Yes.
So I mean, anyway, it's one of, you know, it's that kind of work. And you know, I even still have one or two people from those days. That was like years ago, like 10 something years ago now. And I still have people from those days and they listen to CrossTalk now. So I was like really surprised to hear that because they remember the knitting class. And I'm like,
so awesome.
That's like actually kind of cool. You know, it's so that was quite a long time ago. So, I mean, you never know like how your story's going to like pan out for you. And like, so I just say to people, go for it, man. Like, what are you going to lose?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely. So, I completely agree. You know a little bit of my background. I grew up in the underground punk and skateboard community, and I you know, my dad made a giant skateboard compound in the middle of nowhere. Actually built a couple before Skatopia, but we just, you know, like I said, build it and they will come, and people would just show up, and people come to me, you know, every year at these events and just spontaneously message me, and they tell me so many amazing encounters and experiences and how much I've inspired them and how they've grown and how they got better and they went on their own journey because they had one little interaction with me. And some of those interactions I don't even remember. You know, it's just like, oh, wow, until they mention it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. But it's just so beautiful to see other people, you know, taking up their creative expression and getting out in the world, getting out of your headspace, right? Getting out of apathy, getting out of self-loathing, getting out of the depression, you know, doing some shadow work, getting into the world and interacting. And I agree. I think personal interaction is far more organic, and you get the energy, you get the synergy going with people. It's the same thing with like product selling too, because I've sold a lot of things online. But if you go to a festival, you're more likely to sell things than selling them online, you know. So if you have a tent set up somewhere, you're more likely to sell your content, whether it's art, shirts, whatever it might be, at a festival or at a venue or something like that, than you are ever online, unless you have a huge following, you know. So, yeah, people like one-on-one. We're social creatures. That is the truth. You know, we're all connected. And when you can see people, see their souls, feel their energy, you know, see them in real life, you act more human than you do on these machines in most cases.
That's absolutely correct. That is 100% my experience. I like, and I, you know, and that's funny that you're even talking about that. Like I was explaining to somebody last week, and we were just chatting about it, you know, like, you know, putting yourself more out there, advertising with this and that, and like, you know, using all the capabilities to advertise yourself even online. And you know, like I don't know if other people have this experience, but what was funny is we were talking about that kind of thing, and I was telling her that for whatever reason it is, like when I even advertise myself at all or the work I do or whatever, I get very, very little traffic. Very little. But if I just kind of leave it alone and just do my thing, then my traffic picks up. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's like, you know, a non-physical aspect of like my space, like my energy or whatever it is. I don't know. Like, I don't know how that works. I don't know if other people have that kind of experience or not, because it sounds weird. But every time I try to do some sort of like promo thing, it's not like, it doesn't pick up, like almost no traffic at all.
Right.
But it's very strange. So maybe it's because I'm like an introvert, but I kind of converted into more of an extrovert behavior because I worked so much with the community, and that's where I got a lot of attention. Is that kind of stuff, you know, just being there. They can see me, they can feel me. I'm talking to them, like, and I don't know what it is about that. I don't know. You know, maybe you have some thoughts on that kind of stuff.
After watching many years of my metrics on Facebook and everything, I say that in most cases, me like going and doing promos and advertisement doesn't really increase the viewership very much. If it does, it's insignificant, honestly, and it's kind of a huge energy drain. You know, you got to put in a lot of work for it. Not to say that it can't help or it can't work at all. It depends on how you're using that. But I just don't do it anymore. You know, I don't feel that it's worth it. The people, if they want it, they will find it. You know, they will start searching for it and they will find your stuff. They will interact with you. They will hear it from other people who have had great experiences with you. And these things organically grow. You know, you don't need to force them to happen, right? It's an Eastern tradition called Wu Wei. It translates to, you know, non-action in English, but it's not really non-action. What they really are stating is just kind of allowing things to happen the way they are, but understanding that you are the flow, but you have to go with the flow as well sometimes. So it's not also not being a dead fish that floats downstream either. You know, you have to know when to move against the current and sometimes move with the current. So I see that as well. That's why I don't advertise as much anymore. I think I see that with a lot of content creators too. I don't really see, you know, let's say like Mark Passio again. I don't really see him like advertising too much stuff. I think this shadow work thing is his shadow work seminar he's about to do at the end of the year is the most advertisement I've ever seen him do. And he has a great following. You know, he's, you know, just made a huge impact on so many people's lives positively. So yeah, I don't think I would advocate for that for you know, newbies or fresh starters or initiates to start focusing on that. It's also the business mind, right? Like the business mind wants to increase the numbers. And I think that's part of the ego mind, and we have to detach from that and understand that, you know, as long as you're getting through to at least one person, and as long as you yourself are making those changes, that's the real important thing, is that you yourself are living in harmony with what you're talking about and the principles that you align to and the cosmic laws, then you really have done the work. And I see that this is a big issue with people who just start, because they are so attached to the outcome of changing people's minds and seeing the results within other people's behaviors that they get dissuaded from actually doing the work, and then they feel hopeless. And you have to let go of that attachment and that expectation that everybody else is going to do those things, because then you may go down the path of control, because you might try starting to force people to do those things, and that's the problem. And that's why I called my conference the S.E.E.D conference as well, because it's just planting the seeds. It's their responsibility to nourish those seeds and water those seeds and read the books and watch the videos and, you know, find the podcasts, and that's their journey to do, you know. And when they go on it, they will either be consistent or not. You know, they'll stay with it and stick with it. They do, they'll get great rewards from it. And if not, then they will, you know, I always call it the cipher effect. Go back into the system, go back to the matrix, right? So, yeah, I think that was well said. It's an interesting point, because I'm always working with business-minded people, and they're like, we got to advertise. And the more I think about it, I'm like, no, I don't really think you need to do that all the time. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, sit
No,
back.
I agree with that entirely. I like the idea of organic growth simply because there's more of it feels like a more genuine following, I guess, is how you would phrase that. But, like there's like all these people who like buy followers, and I'm like,
Oh, yes.
I don't understand like what that does, except for maybe up your algorithm, but it's like what's the point in doing that to buy fake followers when it's not actually affecting anyone? Like, you might have one genuine follower and 100,000 or 99,000 whatever bot followers. Like, it's like, what's the point of that? So it's like, I kind of feel like I've been doing this for a couple of years. I'm not super popular. I don't have like tons and tons of followers. It's like still even under like 100 people. But like, I feel like that's a little bit maybe more genuine, and maybe I'm reaching more than one or two, perhaps. So
it's the quality, right? You have the quality of the interaction with those less than 100 people, right? And that's very, very important. Quantity comes later, and you don't necessarily need it. It's really about the quality and how you're getting through the people. And I always have said that it's all about the quality of the work.
Yeah. So let's find out a little bit more about what you're doing. Like what are some of your plans? Do you have any plans for S.E.E.D Academy, or do you have any future projects you're looking to promote or do, or are you just taking it easy? Like, what's the deal for this year?
Well, I have taken a little bit of a hiatus because I am now a new father. So I've been raising my son Rowan with beautiful mother Kaylee, and so most of my work has been involved in acclimating and learning, and kicking into daddy instincts, and doing all this stuff. And it's been an amazing experience, so beautiful, and so many people have given me so much knowledge and so much care, and sent out gifts like yourself, which has just been amazing. And it's just so beautiful to see the community come together. And I'm very proud to have a lot of good people around that can positively impact his life. So that's like my main mission: raise this dude, raise him to be able to think for himself and make his own decisions, and not fall for the mind control and the bullshit and all that stuff, right? So that's been my main mission. And then as far as my personal content, I have now been back in gear with a few things. I've been working on my occult series, which I put on pause, which I started last year, which is kind of building off of an old presentation from the Seed 5 conference. And this is where I'm going very in depth into occultism, the positives, the negatives, mainly focusing on the psychology, the symbolism, the practicing, and what it really is, and how to get away from marginalizing it and bastardizing it, So that's one of the main things I've been trying to do. But this next episode, I just got done getting all the slides together, and I plan on having it released very, very shortly. And it is going to be about pure forms and the circled dot, or magic circles as well. So I'll be talking about the basic essences of what's also known as Platonic forms, archetypes, the basic archetypes, and the most purest geometrical forms that we can find, the most simplest and basic, which all the other ones kind of evolve out of. And then from there, going into some understandings of how occultism has utilized circles and the circle dot symbolism and archetype to invoke magic and many different things. So I'm going to be explaining the history, the contexts, and just a lot of really cool stuff in this next episode, which I'm really excited to get out. And then my other project, which has been for many years now, I've been editing on my anarchist book here recently. So I've been getting back into the editing of that, and I'm hoping to get that out very shortly. It is Anarchism, Rebels Against the State, Anarchistic Philosophy Through History. And, it's about 300-page book, 5x7, I think, or 5x8. And it's, I'm really excited to put that out because it's such a passion project of mine growing up in anarchist communities and stuff like that. So I want to make sure to leave something and give something to the community that they can have tangible, not just presentations, podcasts, and things like this, right? And that's also why I did the declaration, too, because I felt, people could actually print this out, use it, physically have a copy of it, hang it on their wall, just show it to other people, whatever, and it also was inspired by Rowan a little bit, too. So I was like, I really need to put this in concise words and just cut through all the crap and really, get down to the nitty gritty and leave this here for, future progeny, right? So yeah, that's what I've been working on. And other than that, I am just hoping to do some more interviews with some people in the near future on some podcasts. Nothing lined up yet, but always down to go on new platforms and things like this. And so that's about all I have going on.
Nice. Yeah. And it's funny how kids can bring this out for us. This kind of, we start out with passions to be able to do this kind of work, to work with our community, to, build something that can, what I call, stand the test of time. And I'm a big supporter of that, like people having the mindset of producing something that can stand the test of time, which is a little bit different than just doing something flippantly or in a flaky way. Like when you do that, there's more of this idea that this is something that I understand may not get the kind of attention I think it should get now, but in 100 years from now, 50 years from now, whatever, we don't know how this kind of work will affect, our human family in the future. I mean, and I'm a big supporter of that because, just think about our past, our history, our human history on this planet. We are still talking now, even though they may not have had this kind of traction when they were alive, but we're still talking. We are now talking about our ancient philosophers and our ancient creators, and these people, they did that work and it's still in our lives. And that is what I'm talking about when I say that. And that's why I think, doing work online and doing work in our community is great. I think people should do it. Absolutely. But doing something like producing what you produced with the declaration, producing a book, even a physical, tangible item where, you never know, in 100 years, the lights might all go out and it's another cataclysm or some crazy thing might go down. We don't know. We live in a universe that is completely spontaneous. There's nothing secure about it. Anybody who thinks they can get safety and security and 100%, you're smoking crack. You're out of your mind because we live in a universe that is dangerous. Mm-hmm. So you might as well enjoy it while you can. Freedom itself, it's dangerous. It's supposed to be dangerous so that there is a quality of worth behind it and a quality of worth behind experience in this reality. So we have things even in our history where, supposedly high technology, things like that, that we no longer have, or even on the large scale think even ever existed. But somehow we have books and art and things from time periods that they're saying didn't exist. So in the mainstream archaeological science fields, whatever. So I think that's very interesting, and people should start looking more like that. So I love that you're trying to put together more of like a tangible, like a book. I would love to see more of that, especially in the truth seeker circles. I think even if you just produce one, you know, in 1,000 years from now, in 100 years from now, there's going to be some kid who picks it up in a library or off the street or wherever they find books, physical books. And you don't know how that's going to affect our human family in the future. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. I love hearing that. And I love hearing that you had this extra push due to, you know, having a new baby. Congratulations. Having kids is awesome. It really is something, and it gives you that little bit of extra, like, this is why I do this. This is why I'm doing this, because this is our future. Like, I look at my kid and I'm like, this is the future. And then when she gets into my age, the children that come after her, that's her future. And I think that's a really great way to look at that.
Absolutely. I mean, before I even conceived of Rowan, it was always my thing I always thought like, hey, this is for the kids of the future. You know, I always thought about the progeny, and it was just such a motivating factor. But once he came into my physical life, it was like, oh man, you know, like this, it really hit me deep in my soul, and it resonated on a level that you can probably only experience by being a parent, honestly. So yeah, I think that's very important to understand that, and that's why I do all the work that I do. It's not because I expect it to happen for me. I always hear this with people, you know, they're like, what can I do for me today? And I get it. And I'm not saying don't do things to alleviate your suffering today when it comes to oppression. But I always get out of the expectation. I plant my trees for the next generation, you know, so that they can have the fruit. And if I happen to enjoy that with them, that's amazing. I'm not saying that I shouldn't, but I'm not expecting that is the result for me. I'm not saying that I have to have that just for me. You know, I'm doing this for other people. And that's a part of therapy, right? Is getting out of the me mindset, getting out of the mini-me satanic ideology, and getting into the connection with other people. That's holistic consciousness. You know, you're tapping into understanding that you are part of this species, and you have a responsibility not only to grow better experiences, but also to grow consciousness together. And the way we do that is by being better people, you know, getting our minds in order, getting our thoughts, emotions, and actions in alignment with cosmic laws and what we say we want, and also facing the reality that there are requirements to get these things done. You know, they're not just going to just poof, they're going to be here. You know, we have to actually do things to make this happen. And I think a lot of people fear that. That's why they fear freedom, because they fear personal responsibility. They hate it. That's why they love government. That's why they love the state, because it's a big daddy, big mama state that's here to take care of them. But it's an abusive relationship, you know, it's an abusive parental relationship. And people get stuck in Stockholm syndrome, and they just continue to have this, I call it hopiumism, you know, a little bit of hope with some opium, you know, and they're huffing it down because they're like, oh, government did this one thing right here that benefited me. And so now I completely ignore all the other theft and abuse and violence that they've done upon me and my family, and continue to do upon me and my family, because they gave me this one thing, you know, just this one thing. It's just like a interpersonal abusive relationship, you know. And I'm sure a lot of females can understand that, being, you know, you have this emotion about this person and they are just beating you down. They're emotionally manipulating you. And then they bring you flowers one day and take you out to dinner, and you're like, oh, he's changing, you know, he's going to be a better person. And then what do you get? More chronic abuse, you know? and even life-threatening, you know. And this is a life-threatening thing. I think people don't really see that, you know, that your life is being threatened. Your freedom, when your freedoms are threatened, your life is being threatened. And I don't think people take it serious enough. But you also have to have the child spirit. You have to have the creativity. You have to have the faith. You know, you have to have faith in the ability to change, and you also have to know that the condition can change as well. And that's why I continue to do the work I do, because I don't fall into feudalism. I don't fall into this fatal mindset that I think that it's, you know, completely doomed, you know, doomism. Everything's doomed. Nobody's going to change. Consciousness can never grow. We're going to stay in this forever, you know, and it's not optimism. It's not pessimism. It's just simply realism, understanding that things can change if we seek to do the work. And I think the first step is doing shadow work, you know. So my work is more advanced when it comes to some of this stuff, because it's like, hey, you had to have done some work. You know, you have to have put in some effort to understand your own consciousness. Doesn't mean you've done every little thing you need to do to heal your subconscious, to get over your trauma-based mind control, to get out of, you know, whatever it might be, the abuse relationships that you're in. It just means that you are conscious and you're aware of those things, and you're ready to initiate yourself into something better. You're ready to get help. You will get help once you hit rock bottom. You know, when you are ready, you will seek it. And there are people out there. We are all here, like Sarah, myself. We're here. I talk to tons of people, and I give great advice for people and point them in the right directions. I'm not a guru. I'm not anything like this. I'm just a human being here, just co-experiencing and co-creating with you equally as a peer-to-peer, you know, relationship and transaction to make things better. You know, that's it.
No, I agree completely. And I say that all the time. Get your house in order, guys. Get your house in order. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And once you do that, you're going to be rolling. It's going to be so easy to affect change. You won't even probably barely remember what it was like before that. But, and I would suggest to people, like I always suggest to people, go and check out Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I usually try to come from the more clinical, you know, not really ready to be jumping into the full on like spiritual aspect path of side of things. But Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's a neurologist, MD, and like he really understands how the mind works and with the brain. So, and yeah, like on your point about having that child spirit, I mean, like I said, we live in a dangerous reality. We live in a dangerous universe. So, you know, be dangerous and allow yourself to like channel that inner child spirit where you're like, I mean, I don't know if other people remember this, and my daughter did the same thing. Absolute fearless daredevil. She's like climbing on all the tallest furniture. I'm walking in. I'm like, oh my God, like my adult mind, I'm like, she's going to break her neck. But no, she's like, no, it's fine. At 3-4 years old, she was absolutely fearless with it. So I think we all have that. I think most of us when we're very little. So remember to channel that a little bit, and don't be afraid to be a little dangerous, you know, because that's the spontaneous free will aspect of life, and it's quite fun. But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. And I think people should really take this in, take it into consideration, you know, at least, in the very least, and think about what they can really get out of the stuff we talk about here on CrossTalk. I have a question for you. We have Derek joining us, and he wants to know, is there an upcoming S.E.E.D conference in the works? I know you talked a little bit about what you were doing earlier, but that specifically.
Yes, I have been slightly organizing the S.E.E.D conference, and I am tentatively shooting for next spring. The earliest it would take place would be the winter solstice. The latest it will take place is the spring equinox, right around those times. I love those times of the year. I think it's important to channel positive knowledge and channel our consciousness and at those times of the years. So yes, I'm really, really wanting to get the ball moving on that as soon as possible. Right now, I'm dealing with titles, so the name of the event, which has been quite more difficult than normal for this one. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And then other than that, I have talked to a few people about, speaking. I have some speakers lined up already. One of them off the top of my head is James Cordner. Love him. He does great work. And I'm, super excited to get that going again. And I plan on, my whole plan with the S.E.E.D conference is to take it to number 7 and then take a full break from doing those conferences. And on the 7th conference, this has been my goal since the beginning. I'd like to do it in person again rather than just online, because it started out in person and then it eventually moved online. And now, I'm trying to work my way back to doing in-person conferences, because it was very difficult to do the in-person conferences during the COVID, all that stuff, obviously, all that crap. And so I had to move to online mainly. And they can be quite expensive, quite pricey sometimes. And, I got a lot of flack because I was going to charge, to cover the fees for the renting of the university, the room that I had to rent and all the equipment and all this stuff. And I just can't stand that from the freedom community. It is absolutely ridiculous that people are going to attack you because you need to cover your butt when it comes to the expenses of holding a big conference. It's all going to come out of my poor ass? No, come on. If I had the money, I'd do it all for free. Absolutely, but I can't do that. So yes, it is important for people to come and support each other because, we are all financial slaves, and it's very hard to put on these conferences. It takes a lot of know-how. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of resources, and that's it. But yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. That is, on my plate, and really excited to do that. Really super excited. I love doing the conferences. It's been a heart of my work, and I've, enhanced so many people around the world with those conferences. So continuing on, perseverance.
Yeah, I will definitely be looking forward to that. I will be looking for it. So yeah, be sure to check out Brandon's website. I've thrown it into the chat room for you guys. It will be updated as well on the Substack, like I said. And you'll be able to keep up with the updates of the next S.E.E.D Academy conference, which the last ones have been quite excellent work. And so go back and watch those if you haven't had a chance to do that either. I know we're going to be coming up probably in about 10 minutes or so into the break. So we could, you could talk a little bit about the Funnel Conference if you want to start with that and your experience with that. And I think after the break, I'd love to hear more about the declaration and your inspiration for writing that. And what got you motivated, and maybe discuss that, some of the highlights in it that people are going to be able to go and find this document later on your website. So yeah, so let's talk about the Funnel 4 conference, which just happened not too recently. I think it's February already. Yes. Was it February? Dang. Oh my goodness. Flying by. Oh my, right. It's already April.
I know.
So it's already mid-April, and this happened in February. So this is how quick things can be. But at the same time, it seems to you kind of want things to drag out a little bit so that you get more value out of your time.
Yes.
but especially in these early days with your new son. So you want that time to be there. But it's amazing. That was February and it's already mid-April. I just think that's wild. Like,
it is wild. I was thinking that earlier. I was like, wow, it seems like it was yesterday. But yeah, the Funnel Conference, I'm always so grateful that the organizers reach out to, to ask me to attend and speak at their conference. Normally for an event like that, I would put together a very lengthy presentation with slides and stuff like that. Obviously, due to Rowan being born on January 8th, I could not have time to get all that together, but it was an amazing experience. And I think actually it was better. I got a lot of people who came back and was like, yeah, actually you were in your zone with this one, this was a home run. So I actually think it turned out better that I shortened it down to a 30-minute talk and just didn't do anything extra. And we always hear this, right? It kind of goes into the advertisement thing. You need to put in the absolute greatest quality, blah, 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 make your slides, get it looking nice. And that's true to a certain extent. The aesthetics are important. But I literally just sat in front of a camera, recorded, my speech, did a little editing, and that was it, just put it out there. And it was really, really well received by people. But the Funnel Conference was inspired by the S.E.E.D conference, and I talked behind the scenes with Will and Chris and Leslie and, all the organizers, and it's just so amazing and so beautiful to see what they have been doing with their conference. And I love the name, Freedom Under Natural Law, the funnel. And it's very symbolic because of what a funnel is, right? It directs the energy or the liquid down into a single point, which is a cone, which is a circled dot. And if anybody's in, or a spiral, anybody that's studied Nate's work or any of my work will understand the significance of that process. So I don't know if they intended on that, it being called a funnel, with that, or it was just the acronym that just came out naturally and synchronistically. I think that's beautiful either way. But everybody gave such an amazing presentation. The music was top tier. I really, really loved the music there. And, I actually followed a couple of the musicians that I've never even heard of before. And they just did a really, really proficient job with it. And it's hard. It's hard doing that stuff. You got to be there. I mean, my conference, I was up for like 30 some hours over 2 days doing that because I was the only host, so it was like, it was ridiculous. I got very, very little sleep, in between those 2 days and then also work right after. So it was a lot of interesting learning procedures, but yeah, the Funnel Conference, amazing. I highly recommend anybody to go and check that out that's interested in spirituality, consciousness, the occult, mind control, psychology, conscious parenting, anything like that, healing, health, all that stuff. They bring such a plethora of topics with top caliber, researchers, and they just really deliver it. The animations were great. It was just an amazing event. I think it was just top tier, and I'm excited to see what they do with it too, because it kind of came out of nowhere too. I wasn't expecting it. They just kind of messaged me and they were like, hey, and I was like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. All right. Wasn't really sure. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, it was just, it's always just such a blessing to work with these people, and the community is growing. I always said this before. When I first started doing this work, because I have a background in anarchism and libertarianism and things like this from my early childhood, I was like a person in the desert for 40 days, right? I'm just so dehydrated, no water at all, just walking this desert, carrying my one book with my candle, and trying to share this information and just kind of hoping that I run into somebody out in this desert, right, to share or even to communicate with. And that's how it was for me at the beginning. It was like nobody around me, just completely barren. And then every once in a while back then, I'd see something in the distance and I was like, is that somebody? You know, is it really? No way. And it looks like this oasis. And, you know, I get up to it and I'm like, yes, but then it ends up being a mirage, right? And it's actually still just nobody, nothing worth a damn, right? And then eventually now I feel like this desert has kind of grown into this little oasis, and it's like this fertility is coming back, this nutrition to the land, the life is coming back, and the green is growing, you know, the sacred greenness is growing back into this world. And it's just really beautiful to see all these conscious spiritual beings, you know, just moving forward. And I'm also not trying to like say that we have some great amount of people doing this work, because we don't. But when you are that thirsty for connection and you run into that, you know, that one person, it is so impactful. You know, it is so impactful to meet someone of like-mindedness, or somebody receptive, or even somebody who can teach you something. You know, that's even so much more beautiful in many cases, you know. And so now I look around and I feel like I'm in this beautiful jungle, you know, and I'm like, this is awesome. And people are doing it.
Yeah. And, you know, even I find it interesting too when you're in that state of mind and people come into your environment and it's like they're not really looking for it, but something inside them is looking for it, and they just happen to cross your path, and then you like affect them because of the way you talk, the way you conduct yourself, the things you talk about, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, and certain things that they had going on in their life and in their mind start to kind of connect. And I think that's quite beautiful to see that, because you can see it happen to them. And it's like they were so confused in the past. They're like, what's going on here? And then they come across somebody like us, and then they're like, oh, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. So they start to pick, you know, they start to put those pieces together for themselves. And even if it takes them a year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever to figure out all of those puzzle pieces, I mean, I think that's an incredible way to affect people, I should say. Like, I mean, it's just not that we're like the end all be all. It's just like those little seeds, like you were talking about, planting this seed or that seed, because, you know, not everybody has all the answers, but
that's right.
That's why it's a journey to like pick up these seeds from everybody. And I always tell people, listen to everything, read everything, you know, be in that space. Don't just like look at something and go, no, pish posh, that's nonsense. You know, like get a feel of what people are actually talking about first, before we go making assumptions or judgments based off of nothing, you know, because that's the worst thing I think people can do as far as this kind of work goes. And, you know, making assumptions based off of a title card, or, you know, because of rumor has it, this other person said this about this person, so I'm not going to listen to this because blah, blah, blah. You know, that's just noise.
Yes.
It's noise. Like, why would you do that? Like, go find out for yourself. Take personal responsibility. Like
right.
you said earlier, you got to take personal responsibility for this stuff. So we are coming up on the break here any minute now. And I think that's it. I hear them in the background. All right, stay tuned, guys, for the next hour on CrossTalk. We're going to be diving into the declaration. Thanks, guys. See you in a minute.
to Revolution Radio.
Mountain High Time, 2 hours of an organization to the madness, discussing the ever-changing dynamics of being both physically and mentally prepared for a plethora of possible outcomes to our future and present. A look into the latest technologies, new scientific discoveries, and how they might be used in connection to the human domain and controlling it, ancient cultures and places. Be warned. This is an opinionated look through headlines, guests that are not afraid to question the narrative, a little bit of crazy ramblings of a stoner conspiracy factist that pushes constitutional concepts. The place and the time are the same, another dimension we call Mountain High Time. Saturdays 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Mountain High Time, right here on Revolution.radio, where information never sleeps and truth breaks the spell.
Tune in to the Family Industrial Complex podcast here on Revolution Radio, Studio B, every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Get fit, empowered, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
If you're sick of the lies and ready to know thyself, to love thyself, well then tune in to the Loveolution with your hosts, Amy and John Paul, where we speak all about truth, love, and freedom every Tuesday night, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A, right here on Revolution Radio. And remember, only you can free your mind control. Be a Loveolutionary.
Alert, listen up now. To corner with Metro 0XE05173. We talk about decentralization and bank annihilation. Bitcoin, Litecoin, MyCoin, your coin, blockchain, baby. Mondays at 1600 hours Eastern, Studio A.
Deep understanding must arise during these times of unparalleled deceit. A view into the depths of society upon which this country has fallen, a storm brews upon the horizon. It's been said that those that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear will play a paramount role in the furthering of humanity and civilized society. But can civilized society and humanity survive the coming conflicts not seen since a dawn of time in ages bypast? But you can find true forms of information and knowledge in abundance at revolution.radio, freedomsluts.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the globe. Stand upon the right side of history.
General Holder, you've got to get us out of here now! I won't let you down. I won't let you down, son.
Revolution. revolution.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay, and we are back at CrossTalk here on Revolution.radio. And we have Brandon Martin with us. We're going to be talking about the declaration that he wrote and shared this on the Funnel 4 conference that took place in February. And just to get into it, the Declaration of Liberation and Abolition by sovereign and autonomous beings under natural law. So let's discuss this. I would like Brandon here to share what inspired him in the first place to write such a document. And it has the same feel of if you're reading a document. I mean, this is how our founding fathers came together and wrote a document where they were trying to express a lot of these same things, I think, in their day. And I kind of feel, because I study a little bit of history, and I feel like history is vitally important to really understand it, instead of perhaps some of the other people out there who have, I hear a lot, the child's view, I call it, where history is all fake. There's no such thing as history. I'm like, well, okay, well, no, it's just history. You've been lied to about history from grade school. So go and research what history actually is on this planet. So I kind of feel like the founding fathers were a bit of in their own way, the quote, anarchists of their day, to their own extent, and maybe they didn't do it like we are doing it. I do think that they did put in an effort to try to change things. So this document has that kind of feel for me, and I just really love it. I think it's awesome that this is something that's being produced out of the work that's being done in the hopes of creating a brighter future based on freedom for the human family on a global scale on this planet. So let's get into it. I'd like to know where the inspiration first came from. So Brandon, if you want to unmute yourself, we can start with that.
Awesome. Yeah, so when I was, presented with the idea of speaking at the Funnel Conference, like I said, I couldn't do a big presentation. So I was just thinking, what could I do? What could I put together? And at first I was just going to do a speech about all the people who, kind of were claiming to be against slavery and governance and statism, and they all got, hoodwinked by the tyrants of today, the main one being Donald Trump, obviously, just another tyrant in another costume. And I was sick of seeing and hearing all this right-wing rhetoric coming out from the so-called freedom movement. And it was absolutely disgusting and disturbing. And I've seen it for many, many years now. And it's really, really hit me very deeply. So my original intent was actually to write something on that. And then as I started to work, I was like, okay, I need to do something a bit different. I feel like I need something more inspirational and more concise for what I'm trying to state here. And I came up with this idea, well, why not rewrite the Declaration of Independence from my current knowledge and current consciousness level, knowing the things I know about natural law and history. And also I put myself into this mindset of, you know, if I was someone like Benjamin Franklin or Sam Adams or any of the founding fathers that were specifically non-federalist and against slavery, how would I have written this document to prevent the onslaught that has taken place because of the failure that came about from the lack of knowledge, whether that's ignorance or nescience. So I was hoping to write this not only as in a way, an homage to the Declaration of Independence, but also an adaptation and an improvement upon that to give a more concise and clear, definitive understanding of what it means to stand against all forms of tyranny and all forms of oppression throughout all times. Because we have this idea that, you know, first of all, a lot of people think that slavery ended with chattel slavery, and they don't realize that that's still technically going on in the world today. And then a lot of people, you know, just are like, oh, I'm comfortable in my servitude. It's fine, you know, as long as I, you know, get my food and government provides for me, blah, blah, blah. So even though I accept government and I know it's corrupt, you know, I still won't do anything about it because it interferes with my comfort zones, you know, it interferes with my lower base pleasures. And it's nothing, I said it the other day, actually. I said something to the effect that, you know, imagine being in, you know, a chattel slavery condition where you're in ball and chain and you're like out in the field and you're working and you're looking to the other slaves and you're saying, this cannot stand anymore. This has to stop. And then the other slaves are just like, oh my God, how dare you say this stuff, right? Like, how dare you? You know, if we're free, we have to deal with all this risk, right? Like, oh my God, if we're free, the other slaves are going to come and take our clothes and take our food because they're free too, you know? And they're so locked in this mind control technique of fear, and they're so worried about the what ifs and but this, right? Which is a technique of preventing you from actually getting out of mind control. They teach you this in therapy. They teach you this in, you know, if you go to, let's say like AA, you know, the what if this, what if that, right? And this fear thing that prevents you from creating change, then you're not going to go anywhere. You're not doing anything, you know? You're not changing anything in yourself, let alone changing the condition that you most likely don't agree with. If you ask people on an everyday basis, they probably don't agree with being stolen from. You know, if you ask them to go do what the government is doing to their neighbor and to them themselves, they probably are going to be like, yeah, I don't agree with taxing my neighbor to take care of my driveway. But for some reason, they magically think it's okay as long as they do it through this apparatus known as government or the state or any other kind of institution, extended from their visual and their mental, you know, conscience, being that I don't actually see the harm that's taking place from the individuals, though all you got to do is look at your neighbor, because your neighbor's probably feeling it because he's poor too, you know, and he's being punished as well. So yeah, I can't stand this mentality, but it shows how broken people are. And I mean broken as like an animal, like a horse, you know, where you can let that, you know, rein go and that horse will stay right where it's at. It can be completely free and they will stay right there in the condition of mind control. That's why you got to get out of the head cage. So this document was specifically designed to clarify, you know, what it means to stand up and be consistent with the principles of natural law, be consistent with the ideas of actually wanting freedom, you know. And that's the problem with the Declaration. As I read the Declaration, this is funny since you probably read it a few times, maybe once. Everybody's read it at least once, I hope, at least. The first part of it is great, And then as you get towards the middle and the third part or whatever, it kind of falls off, and it's based upon the time period, obviously. So as I was reading this document, I was like, wow, like this first part of this introductory section, which is what most people remember, is the most powerful and the most timeless. So I took that and extrapolated upon it and was like, I'm working with this. I need to explore this more. And as I started to put in more effort, it just naturally and organically came together. And yeah, so I tried to make it as concise too, like as simple as possible, but I can be pretty bad with that sometimes. I'll like overstate things, and I had to go in and delete a bunch of stuff too at one point, with the editing, obviously. But yeah, the other thing about this document is to make sure to understand that there needs to be no form of legislation, no legality, no superior group or institution or courts or judges or anything like this to invoke this document, because that's the problem with the declaration as well, is that they're still working from this mindset of the tools that they had at that time period to get this done, and they're also trying to compromise with people to fight against the British at this point, right? So it's a very difficult thing, because I agree with what you said. I aspire to be as intelligent and as freedom oriented as the founders. They were not scared of the risk of freedom, right, in any way, shape, or form, and a lot of people really, really are. And I think that's part of the issue. And then also revisionist, they want to go back and be like nitpick about nuances that took place. You didn't live there. You have no fucking idea how hard it was, and you don't want to bastardize something that is based in truth because of a downfall of a character trait, right? And that's a problem, because people will look at the character and say, well, he didn't live by his principles here, so... Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't live by his principles here, so all of his work is bad, right? We find this everywhere. They want to attack the character rather than look at the actual ideas. So,
And I would just say really quick, not to interrupt you, but I would agree with that. I think because a lot of people want to throw away the work that our founding fathers did. I just want to say they headed into this fearlessly, and they were under probably a bit of a greater threat at the time, because you had the British occupation out and open, who was a, monarch, oppressive system. And there's a lot that was going on there, and it was more out in the open. It's not like what it is today, where, in America, at least, it's not like England, where they're like busting people's doors down for posting like a Facebook post against like a politician or whatever. Right. They can't do that in America, because like at least 50% of us are armed. So it's like, try me today. Like, yes. Try me. And even I would say with like more of the conservative people of this country, we're not of that mentality to be like, okay, like we'll say okay up to a point, but we won't, we're still a kind of country that still likes those kind of things, and we're not okay with government, especially an overreach of government of any kind. And it's just, I think the founding fathers, they did their best. They created something that was applicable for their time as training wheels to perhaps set up the future for us to continue doing that, because the problem, excuse me, I think the biggest problem with freedom and attaining freedom is that it must be maintained at all times. There ain't never one and done. You can't just do something one in history and that's it, utopia forever. You have to maintain it. because
Right.
there's always going to be that 3% or less psychopathic parasite class in our community, on our planet, that's going to try to push their luck. So maintaining freedom, however it works best for the time, I think is something to consider. And I think this is just another staple in our history, especially with, creating a document like this. I was thinking it would be kind of an interesting thing to do if like this document was something that we shared around and we started signing it.
Right.
Like we back this up, that's what our founding fathers did. So backing it up that this is like what we're all generally agreeing with. And there's even ways to submit stuff like this into the official government and being like, this is it. And like when you have something backed up enough and wide spoken enough, and especially in this day, it should be a lot easier to get that circulating. It wasn't back then. Back then, they had to go everywhere. They had to travel physically. There wasn't any internet. Okay, right. Guys. So you couldn't just email somebody a document and sign this, whatever. And I would say this is bigger than just like a petition, right. Not thinking of it as a petition, but a new staple, another reiteration of human beings declaring their sovereignty on this planet. And I feel like our Bill of Rights is that. I feel like the Declaration of Independence is like that. These are not things I think we should throw out, but include as part of our history and showing the progression. This is a portfolio. The Nuremberg Code, if no one's ever read the Nuremberg Code and the staples of the Nuremberg Code, that needs to be in your collection of documents created that enforce our human freedom on this planet, or in the very least in this country. So I really feel like these things, I have copies of all this stuff because it needs to be there in our history, and people need to not forget their history. So I feel like this should be in that same collection of things. It's in that same tier. So how interesting would it be if we all online and in person went and took a roll call and had, people who were willing to sign it, and that leaves impact, even if it wouldn't leave impact today, like what we were talking about earlier. Imagine what they're going to, when they find that in 100 years from now, and they're going to go, right, this is a staple in our history.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I had some recommendations to put it through a legal paper, the legal section in the paper, to get it as a legal document, right? And I have considered, pushing it in different ways depending on how people receive the document itself. But yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think it's part of the history, and the history is so vital to keep intact for posterity and progeny, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, so go and check that out, guys. Read it, give it a read through, read it a couple times. And if you haven't read it, and if you haven't read the older documents as well, if you haven't read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Nuremberg Code, the Declaration of Independence, these should be read. It doesn't matter how you feel about them or if you agree with this or that or whatever. These need to be read. You need to understand what they say. So, and with the Constitution's actually been changed, where the Bill of Rights, I don't think is something that they've ever succeeded in changing, as far as I know from what I've read so far. But the Constitution itself, the Bill of Rights was actually an attachment that when they were writing these things, they were writing the Constitution, and there were states that were withholding of signing the Constitution. And what happened was the compromise was the Bill of Rights was created. So I kind of consider the Bill of Rights a little bit more important than the Constitution itself, because it's where really the I think people who are more like me and Brandon, they were more like, yeah, why have any sort of big reach government to begin with? Get these clowns out of here. So that was the compromise that they made, because there was obviously a compromise made, like, okay, we got to get, the, unfortunate, useful dupes out there to really take baby steps, put the training wheels on so that they can be a little bit more fearless about disconnecting themselves entirely from the crown, which was, I think, a huge concern for them back then. It was a fear-based response, and people just didn't want to push their luck. Just like today, you have people who won't even show their face on camera because there's a fear-based response there, because they're afraid of the impact it'll make on their lives. And I say this is the time where we've got to make those kind of choices. And I'm a lady now. My family's grown. I'm in a stage now where I'm getting old and mean, and I'm almost at that age group where like that filter comes off. So watch out, guys. When you get like kind of older and you're just like, I don't care. You just say anything. Like if anybody who has like experience with like older people, like the elderly, like they don't care what they're saying to whoever, they don't care. And it's hilarious, but that filter comes all the way off, and I'm like, I'm just getting into that. I'm getting to that point. So guys, I feel like it's really important to get involved and at least say something, do something, share something, be active somehow. Like I'm not saying build a podcast, but being effective somehow, even if it's just raising your children to understand this information, that goes miles beyond anything that I think we do in the community or even online. When we raise our children, with, this kind of principles, then they're going to raise their children like that. It's a pay it forward system. So
yes, very well stated. Absolutely. I think that, just like you said, I have these documents in my library, and that's why I put this out for free as well. People can download this for free, use it as they wish. It is a completely open source document. I think I did a pretty good job at wording everything. That was one of the things that I kind of struggled with, was the wording of this to be as clear and definitive as possible. Some of the highlights that I have here kind of show the ideas that are being relayed through this document, and I'll read a couple of these for the audience here. And so it starts out. When in the course of human events it becomes evident that any people or person of the universe have fallaciously advocated, condoned, and created systems of governance which by their very nature are reliant upon coercion and force, aka violence, which are inherently unjust, it is the responsibility of free and sovereign individuals to reject such systems and assert their inherent rights under natural law. A decent respect for the immutable truths of existence compels us to declare the principles that guide this rejection of tyranny and the establishment of true liberty under natural law. The sovereign and autonomous individual recognizes only the legitimacy of the inherent rights of individuals, which I call moral agents. Many anarchists and many liberty-minded people have called these individuals moral agents in the literature, and the moral law of nature as the foundation of a free and just society. So one of the things that I was intending with this document, which a lot of people might not know, is that one of the things that I found that was the issue with the Declaration was also the collectivism that was being pushed in it, not like in a malicious way, but just because they were trying to group people together so that they had more, you could say energy behind that or power behind what they were trying to do, because you do need numbers to make change, obviously. But this is more, I'm trying to state this more as an individual, right? As an individual, so that I'm not assuming that other people are in alignment with this, right? I'm not assuming what other people would do with this, right? So this is a statement for the individual to make, and that's why the next paragraph is, I, as the autonomous and sovereign individual moral agent, hold these truths to be self-evident, that all human beings are created equal in rights, that they are endowed by their very nature and virtue of their existence with immutable, inherent, and innate rights. Among these, not exclusive to are moral life, liberty, right for property, and the pursuit for moral happiness. And part of this is also a key thing, because I'm trying to make sure that it's not ambiguous. Because when we say we have the right to happiness, well, what do we mean by that, right? Because some people are happy with hurting other people. They literally are happy with hurting other people. So I had to clarify that it's moral happiness, an objective statement about morality and rightful property, not just any property, right? Something that is rightfully acquired, one who has not, you acquired this by not violating or harming another sentient being or moral agent to get this, right? And these types of words are very, very important, because one of the issues with people who went back and looked at some of the earlier documents was the ambiguity of the words, because they don't understand the context of the words being used. So that's also why I'm trying to be more clear with this, is because I don't want the future to look back and be like, oh, well, he meant this, because there wasn't this word in front of it, right? And that was one of the ideas I had in my head when I was writing this document, which is so vital to me, because I hear people like being so subjectivist when it comes to, let's say, the Declaration or the first few amendments of the Constitution or anything like this. And I'm just like, no. You have to read all their work, or at least some majority of their work, and understand the context of the history, the environment, the condition, the society, right? You have to understand the way the literature is being written. You have to understand penmanship, right? And ideas as well at some level. Some people naturally have it intuitively. Other people need to go through some text and really gauge it, with this, because you can change it and rewrite it to be what you want, right, in your mind. So you say happiness, and some solipsist or some hedonist will take that as, I can do whatever I want without any consequences, right? Some, sociopath, you can even say, or narcissist. So that's why I was clarifying with these words preemptively to these things, such as happiness. So I don't know if you caught that in the document or not. A lot of people don't, but it's very important to know those things.
Yeah,
another thing,
I definitely caught it. Yeah.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I mean, I would just say remember that people, wordcraft is a thing that anybody who writes anything strives to perfect. Wordcraft matters. Context matters. History matters. What is happening in that particular time frame matters. And that's why things are put together the way they are at that time. Our language changes from, century to century. I look up words all the time, and you look up this word, right? And it means this. And you just think it always meant that. But you go back 100 years ago and it meant something else. And you're like, that was not what I was expecting, like totally the opposite. So
Right.
word craft matters and the time period matters when you're reading these documents. You got to keep that stuff in mind. So good point to bring up, Brandon.
Yes. I always called myself a wordsmith because I like to play with words, especially in the esoteric way, right? Because I'm into esotericism, and words are spells, you know, they're vibrations, it's cymatics, they're very powerful. Very important to understand the Vishuddha chakra, the throat chakra, right? And getting that open to speak your mind clearly and consistently, right? So another highlight I would bring to the table is later on in the document, it says just a few paragraphs after what is natural law. It's actually under that section. It says, let it be known to all who cherish liberty that the measure of a people's freedom is bound inextricably to their morals. And what I mean by this is the objective moral law of the universe, natural law. And that's why I defined natural law before that. So you have to take in the consideration of the previous statement to understand that sentence. And then it goes on to say, as righteousness flourishes, as in righteousness under moral law, among men, meaning women and men alike, I mean men in the classical definition, not the postmodernist definition, so too does their liberty expand, unrestrained by the yoke of tyranny. But when vice and corruption take root in their hearts of the people, the ground beneath them erodes, and the despot's chains are fastened upon their limbs. So this is pretty much stating, you know, you have to be consistent with these things to a high degree. Otherwise, you know, you're just leading yourself down another path of enslavement. And that's why the next paragraph is, no nation was ever enslaved by foreign conquerors before it had first decayed from within. That's the first statement. And what I mean from within is not just domestic. I mean within ourselves here, within our own minds, within our own hearts, you know, as we decay morally and in principles and in education and in integrity, right? Virtue, these things, as we decay internally, it decays externally. It's the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. So yeah, it is not by the strength of kings nor arms of oppressors that a people lose their freedom. It is by their own abandonment of moral principle, by their submission to fear, and their willingness to exchange duty for indulgence. When the spirit of virtue wanes, the tyrant finds no resistance, for people having forsaken their own discipline soon beg for the lash of a master to order their affairs. And so, as you can see here, the way I'm wording this is, I know we have not too much more time, but as you can see, I'm trying to invoke anybody who's read some of the founding fathers. I'm trying to invoke the style as well. Specifically with these statements, I was inspired by Sam Adams and his writings, because Sam Adams, I believe, was one of the most consistent founders. And this document is a call to action, you know, such as like Benjamin Franklin had a call to action, Sam Adams had a call to action. So this is a call to action to heal yourself and to get an alignment in your own temple, your own mind, get your spirit in alignment, you know, because a spiritual illness reflects into the physical as a physical illness. And what I mean by that is as a cultural illness, right? Obviously, there's many different forms of illnesses, but I mean a mental illness, and that can be a very, very, very dangerous place to be when we are, you know, in the sickness of the mind. So I think. Go ahead.
I would just say really quick, I think that is the most detailed and the most polite way I have ever heard somebody say, you got what you asked for, take personal responsibility. We're in this mess because we allowed it.
Right.
And so I think that is the best way I have ever heard somebody say, take personal responsibility for what is happening with yourself, with your external environment. And I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. So very,
so
very,
much.
very clean, very, very clean, very put together well.
Well, thank you. I really worked my buttocks off on this.
Yeah. So yeah, please continue.
Okay. Another highlight that I had brought out, one of the paragraphs was after I laid out what governments have done. And this was something that was kind of difficult for me to do, the history of governance and its repeated violation of individual autonomy and things like this. And I just wanted to make it concise, something that could be generalized across time, right? Across all cultures and time, to see the same techniques being ubiquitous within every state and within every system that has ever, been used as a coercive means against the individual. So I laid that out, and then I went into this idea of judgment upon, humankind. And I didn't highlight this section, but I do think it's important to point out that, with this, I'm not claiming to be the final judge of humanity. I'm not claiming to be that in any way, shape, or form. But I am invoking my right of self-defense with this against those who would seek to usurp my liberties or other people's liberties. And then that led into the idea that justice, to be true, must never serve as a new engine of oppression. Then so it must be stated that accountability must be correctly guided by the objective principles rooted in natural law, which safeguards against the corruption into mere retribution and vengeance, lest we replace one master with another. And I feel that that's kind of some of the failure that took place with the earlier documents that were trying to enshrine freedom, is that over time, these things, because of the ambiguity and because of the alterations and because of the extra amendments and all these changes and all the bureaucratic slavery and, all this mind control that took place, that we lost the essence of understanding the inherent rights. We lost the essence of understanding that, you can't just defeat a system that's oppressive, because the issue is that the consciousness behind the people who have defeated it, if it's not preserved properly or if it has already decayed or corrupted, then it's just going to repeat itself again and again and again as a new system, right? A new system of slavery and oppression. So this document is not intended to be used as a new, system to enslave, if it ever would be invoked by any group of individuals who wanted to, create a system. And that's something that I really wanted to put a finer point on, because it's so dangerous, and that's something that a lot of people fear, is like, what comes after? You get rid of the state, what comes after, right? And they're always like, well, what about this? And what if that, like I talked about earlier?
Yeah, that's the what if a dragon syndrome? That's what I call that. It's
yes.
What if a dragon? I don't know. What if a dragon? Yes. Deal with it, because reality is dangerous.
That's
this universe is dangerous. So deal with it, because you're adults. Right. We're adults. What if a dragon? Like, seriously, if an actual dragon popped out in front of my house right now, I'd be like, oh, cool, a dragon. What am I going to do with that? It's right. So it's like, just relax, guys. Things change all the time, and it shouldn't be something to be afraid of. And yeah, these things can take time to change, but it only happens when we say something and do something about it.
That's right.
So
that is right.
Yeah, I think it'd be funny to come back and do like a July 4th thing surrounded. Maybe we could get a couple of people to join us us on CrossTalk or do something where we're doing a online new Independence Day type of celebration.
That would be cool.
That would be crazy.
Amazing. Honestly.
So just to like reinstate it, and I'm like, and my other point I wanted to bring up too, what you were saying, something that can't be used to create a heavier chain like slave collar for the people is a good point to bring up. You know, like, and I mentioned the Nuremberg Code earlier.
Right.
This is one of those documents. They don't like it when you bring up the Nuremberg Code. Even today, there's no way for that to be there's no way for it to be weaponized. And
right.
So that's the one thing that I think the Nuremberg Code is definitely something that needs to be read and reread and understood fully, because it pertains specifically to our personal bodily autonomy and the violations that, okay, any kind of medical experimentation, you have to get my permission, that's it. And there's no way to force that. So that's why I appreciate that. And it even has guidelines to go with it. And it's never been like, eventually, first it was just documents. And then eventually there was a judge who put it out as this is like an official document. It holds up in court. It holds the same significance and you can use it. You can use it to protect yourself with. So I just wanted to point that out, that is a document that cannot be weaponized against the people, and people don't use it enough. They don't even understand what it is. Right. So know what it is, because it's a foundational document. I feel like people should know exactly what it says, and that will protect you from any kind of medical, tyrannical nonsense, fake pandemic, lockdowns. They are not allowed to experiment on us. And if you enforce that, they will back down. I am proof of that. I did that through the entirety of that fake pandemic. Not once did they try to challenge me on it, because I brought that up at every turn. You can enforce your rights. So along with a document like this, which I think can be quite big, it could really get quite big if we make it big, and it could be added into that, and a document that is unable to be weaponized, because they just can't do it. Like it's like untouchable. I think that's kind of amazing when you make something like that, and it will stand the test of time. I think that's how I think about it. This is the kind of thing that stands the test of time.
I'm just so glad and appreciative that you gained so much value from this document. You know, I didn't know how it would be received. I even consider, you were talking about like people signing it and stuff like that. I even at one point had considered, getting, people in the community to sign one document, to have one printout, and then also getting it notarized at that point, right, to make it a little bit more official in some legal capacity. But yeah, I mean, it can be powerful. But even if it's never put through the system, I still feel that, like if somebody went to the courts and did it, they don't have to do it with my permission or anything. Just go and run it, see what they would do with it. I'm cool with that. Or if anybody has any suggestions on how I should do that, I probably would do some research and then potentially seek to put that in. But I don't hold any kind of delusions in my mind that I need to go through them to do that, right? Like that's part of this document. It literally states in here that we don't need to go through that procedure. But in times of tyranny, when you have nothing but a system of slavery all around you, any tool of self-defense that you can invoke as an individual to, defend yourself and defend your family, use it. Like do that. That's what the right to bear arms is really about. It's not just arms. It's the right of self-defense is what it's really about, and you have implements, and that's words, that's weapons, that's, documents, it's all kinds of stuff. Use them as you wish. But I'm under no illusion that this document's going to change the system.
Yeah, no. And I think
has to change the individual. I think that's a healthy perspective to have, because I think when they wrote the Bill of Rights, they had the same idea. Yep. The Bill of Rights didn't even become official till really long after it was written. The Nuremberg Code didn't become official till long after it was written. So that's how the progression of these kind of things can work. But it would be very interesting if people just printed this out for their own sake. Like, I actually carry laminated, notarized official documents in my purse for certain things because I'm just a lunatic, I guess. But to print this out, sign it, laminate it, carry it around with you. And in the very least, when you present this to somebody trying to violate your rights for whatever reason it is, they're going to look at that and they go, oh, crap, is that like a real thing? And they're not going to question you. I promise you, the majority of people will not question you. They won't do it. So they'll think even that this is a fully in the government, the man-made government realm, because it's got that official whatever attached to it or look to it. Right. So this is how these things get started. I mean, absolutely. Like, I think even the Nuremberg Code, it wasn't technically official until like something like 20 years later or something like that. Like, I mean, crazy. So that's something to consider with this kind of stuff. So I do think it would be very interesting if we did something for July 4th. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be willing to come on. The other thing is that I'd like to state, I have two more things. I know we're almost out of time here. This also is intended to unify people together. This is a document that we all can have and we can all unify with, right? So this is a unity-based text that is to build something with people where it's consistently ubiquitous across like anything, right? And honestly, if even people wanted to come in and be like, hey, we should edit this here and there, I'd be open to that as well. But as the final paragraph, because I know there was a few more highlights, but I know we're running out of time. The final paragraph was one of my favorite paragraphs, which is why I made it so big and, bold at the end there and colored it. And it states, "It is the duty of all free men animated by the spirit of liberty to resist every encroachment upon their rights, to cast off the chains of despotism, and to stand firm in defiance of every power that would presume to rule them unjustly. With firm reliance upon the eternal principles of truth and with steadfast reliance on the eternal principles of natural law, I do hereby pledge my sacred honor, my resources, and my very life to resist all forms of tyranny, to restore harmony, and to protect and uphold liberty for and of all posterity and progeny. And may posterity, looking back upon this declaration, say that in this age, as in all ages where tyranny has reared its head, there were men and women who would not submit, who would not yield, but those who stood as vigilant guardians of freedom, unwavering in their resolve until liberty was secured and the domination of tyranny cast into oblivion." And I was really like, that still gives me shivers. Like when I read that, like it's just so powerful. And even that alone, like I would love to go to a conference and just state that and then drop the mic and be like, I'm out.
Yeah. Hold on now, Martin. Where's my pen? I got to find my pen. Hold on. But on all serious, we got a few more minutes. Tell people where they can find this document, where they can find your work, and where they can be sure to stay updated with your future plans.
Okay, yeah, you can find the document at seedtruth.com. It has all my work on there, all my presentations, all my podcasts. I upload whenever I get a chance to put new stuff on there. I do a lot of articles, so I also do a lot of esoteric work and break down movies. And like just recently, well, it wasn't super recent. I think December is recent, but in December I put out a new article on Die Hard and the esoteric analysis of Die Hard, correlating it to the Egyptian hero myth and stuff like that, which is a fun read and very informative as well. But the document is on there. It is free to download. It's very easy to find, so it should be right on the main page. You can scroll down. There'll be a video. The document is posted there, and you can download it for yourself and sign it. Or if you don't want to sign it, I don't really care. Give it your John Hancock or not. That's up to you. Yeah, like do whatever you want with it. Print it out, hang it in your room, read it to your children, share it with your friends, show it to a police officer, do that. That's what I really want to see. Give it to a police officer or a military order follower, give it to one of those people and see what they say about it.
And what's funny is like, I actually think like, even though those fields can be subjectively hit or miss, and I feel about cops, but the thing is like, there are people in those professions who leave the profession or whatever. I think there's actually more people who would actually agree with a lot of it than more than we think, even in those fields. So I think that's interesting. I mean, and you could do what they did in like the old days, where they just, there used to be like mail service things where you just like send, you put something in an envelope and you send it off to like random addresses. This is something people used to do. Like pen pal stuff. Like back in the day, someone would just pick an address, write a letter, send it off, and hopefully get like a pen pal thing going on. That used to be a thing. Like,
I remember as a kid doing it.
They need to bring back pen pals. I thought that was a great exercise. You could do something like this, stuff one in an envelope and pick an address out of the yellow books and just send it out. And the person getting it's going to go, what is this? So, and hopefully they will react to it like, and, they'll certainly read it. But I don't know. I think there's many ways to get this kind of stuff out there.
Right. You never know what kind of effect you will have on somebody,
Yeah.
It just takes that one thing, and then they're like, oh, and a light bulb goes off, and, it's like fireworks in their head. It's July 4th in their head, right?
Right.
Stuff is going nuts. Neurons and synapses are firing.
Yeah. And they're like, where did this come from? So, I mean, people used to do crazy stuff like that all the time back in the day. Like there was, I heard a story about one guy and he sent out like an advertisement in the paper or something like, please send $1 to this address. I'm in need of $1. And this guy got so many dollars in the mail.
Wow. Oh my God.
And I'm like, that is freaking genius. Like, I don't know if that would work today because everyone's like, I don't use cash, I'm modern. But I just think that like, you never know, like people respond. Yeah. They respond to stuff, especially when they get like wild, random crap in the mail. Yeah, so it's true. I think that's because people are social creatures. I think we spoke about that in the beginning. We're social creatures even when we're introverts. That's why we go online and associate ourselves and interact online, because really there's parts of us that are wanting to be social and connect. It's why people do it. We're all social creatures that way. So yeah, we got another minute here. I think we're going to get our cue here any minute now. Guys, go and check out Brandon's work. Go to his website. Go check out Funnel again, of course. Go check out SoundPath. These are all things that are coming up and in the future, and they work because we get listener support, we get people who share, we get people who help us, to, encourage us to do this work. So go check out those resources. And if you have a chance, go show Reyes some support as well. Thanks, guys. That's another episode of CrossTalk. I will see you next week for another get together on CrossTalk. So be there, be square. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.